Oh no, my Fiat Chrysler stock, what's going to happen? So this is a video, I just did a video earlier this weekend about Fiat Chrysler, and now they come out with news saying Fiat Chrysler approached Renault group to potentially merge the two companies at a 50-50 kind of split. And what kind of implications that have, I thought I'd kind of discuss that here from my perspective. I tried to dig into Renault. I don't know everything about Renault, but basically if we go into the deal is merging a 50-50% split between a new company. It'll be like a Fiat Renault or something. And that'll make everybody have new shares in this new company. There'll be an extra payout towards the Fiat Chrysler ones because of the difference in price for the shares. But that is kind of the proposed merger. The benefits of this, they're going to be able to have, you know, shared research budgets, shared purchasing strategies. I think this is also a really good plan for the internal accountants, because this is going to be very confusing with all. Now, Renault itself already has kind of several alliances and a major alliance with Nissan and Mitsubishi, which is going to complicate things even further once they're traded on the New York Stock Exchange and have to deal with all the brands that Fiat has. But this is an interesting proposal. I mean, Fiat Chrysler, they're strong in North America. They have a decent presence in Europe, but it's not really going anywhere fast. And then they'd like, and a good exposure to South America. They'd like more exposure to the rest of the world. They have it, but it's not that good. And then you have Renault with their kind of partnership with Nissan. So they have good exposure in Europe, good exposure in Japan, good exposure in Africa, and smaller exposure in North America. So they really complement each other. If they were to merge, their businesses would be a lot more global. They'd be able to have a pretty good presence with good brands in most regions. And maybe an added benefit is like these renegades in Northern Africa would be able to pick up a Gladiator, electric Gladiator, instead of having to run off a Toyota Hilux's. But anyways, on a more serious note, the two stock prices, the New York Stock Exchange was closed Monday, so Fiat Chrysler's price on that market isn't really reflecting the price change yet, but Monday in Europe the stock price went up almost 10%, same with Renault's. So you probably expect in the early hour trading to go up to about 1380. It might fluctuate down around after that, but you probably expect that to happen. So with that, we'll kind of go through the numbers and get a sense of the two companies. So Fiat Chrysler, they have a PE ratio of about 7, whereas Renault has a PE ratio of 4.6, both very low, very low. Then you have a forward PE ratio. Now Fiat Chrysler is estimated at 4, Renault is estimated at 3.7. Both of them are growing reasonably well. Maybe Fiat Chrysler's having a better growth, but still very low for projections. Price to book value, 0.7 for Fiat Chrysler. Again, they do have a bit of a high goodwill, so that's a little bit of a sketchy price to book. For Renault, it's 0.4, and they actually have a really low, a pretty low price to book, although they have a very complicated accounting structure, so there could be some hidden stuff there. But they are much lower, so this kind of merger would benefit the price to book for Fiat Chrysler. I think the earnings, on the other hand, is about even. It might benefit a little bit of Renault. And then the dividends, currently Fiat Chrysler just put in a dividend there about 5.3%, and Renault's is about 6.3%. So the people who get the new company, assuming they keep a similar dividend, they might be getting, you know, still like close to a 6% dividend. Pretty good for most companies, especially a big company like this. Then there's the 5-year growth rate. Fiat Chrysler was at about 25.5% per year for the last 5 years, whereas Renault was more kind of the market average, about 13%. So this merger, what they really get is, you know, the shareholders will get probably a good dividend. There is a potential benefit for Fiat Chrysler shareholders because the share price difference, they're asking for an extra like 2.5 billion euros, I think, for dividend payout towards them, which would be, I think that, anyways, I think it works out to, anyways, close to 10%, maybe more, I could be wrong, but basically big, just like the Magnetic Rally special dividend that they just paid last month, or last week or so. And so that could be a big payout, and then you'd have a merger of the two, and you'd have this like interesting new share, which is, from these values, still probably low compared to the market. The other benefit, so for Fiat Chrysler, what do they get? They're going to have more technology for electrification, and they're going to have a wider range. Like I mentioned, they could be able to sell trucks in Africa. They're going to be able to have a better presence maybe in Japan or Asia, potentially. Also be able to keep their brand strong in Europe and have a major, dominant auto player in Europe, I guess, to rival others. With this merger, they would be probably, somewhere like, they'd be ahead of GM. So I don't remember, they're third or fourth in the world basically for auto sales. So that's pretty big. And the benefits to Renault, one of the problems with Renault is they have fairly high current liabilities. So they might have problems if interest rates rise quickly to be able to maintain their debt levels and have, a good credit flow or cash flow. So the high cash flows from Fiat Chrysler will probably benefit. I don't know if they'll be the best, it could still be a better financial or balance sheet, but it will benefit significantly the position of Renault. So this merger definitely helps that. Renault, obviously very little presence in North America or South America, so that will help basically that aspect. Definitely a global player. So those are some really big things. So I do think it's actually a pretty good merger. The companies actually are looking like they're both relatively cheap. So I don't think that's that bad for shareholders. Probably a little bit better for Fiat Chrysler shareholders. It does add a little bit more growth to Renault because they've Fiat Chrysler is really focused on more profitable vehicles. Now that said, in the past, Renault also had kind of refocused their company a bit and made it a little bit stronger, especially with these these alliances that they have. Now, why are these share prices both down? Generally, the automotive industry is being pressured down because people think there's going to be a slowdown in the market. Now, being a global player that's much bigger and better cash flows, both good balance sheets or better balance sheets, closer to some of the other big players that are a little bit more well-funded. So it will give them a good position that way. They have good brands overall. So with the slowdown in the markets, I think they're still going to do okay. And I also see, there's other things that put the pressure on these companies. The stock price for Renault has been down also because there's a lot of controversy over their previous CEO. He was the CEO of Renault and Nissan, and the Japanese arrested him last year because he's under investigation for basically defrauding the company, putting an extra liability on Nissan when he shouldn't have, maybe, that's what they say, and, pocketing extra money for himself, dealings with shady people from Saudi Arabia. Anyways, those kind of things, not very good. But they have a new CEO. I don't know whether he's as good or bad. It's hard to know. So because of that, they have some bad vibes, I guess, between Nissan and the Renault group. So it will be interesting to see if Nissan sticks around or if Fiat is allowed to join them. Another thing is the French government also steps in often when they talk about mergers. and whether they want to approve it or not. Now, this might be a little bit easier than, say, like a Japanese company trying to merger with Renault, because France might be more open to having a Italian company merging with a French company, and then having a headquarters in the Netherlands or something. So interesting way of thinking about this company. I think the merger proposal is very reasonable. It probably does benefit both companies. They'll be able to get into electrification. Waymo is partnered with Fiat Chrysler, so that'll help for the autonomous driving side of Renault. And yeah, big benefit, better financials, more money for each of them. They'll be able to do more of these big projects like electrification and autonomous driving. And also Fiat Chrysler, they benefit probably from the emission standards that they had to pay a whole bunch of money to Tesla in the past for, because of emission standards in Europe that they couldn't meet. So this is an interesting play. I'd love to know what you guys think. Do you think it is a good merger potential? Do you think it will happen? And do you think the stock price will go up after that? Because I kind of think it's still probably on the low end for the value, but we'll have to see. I mean, I don't know exactly what will happen once they do form a new company and how they reposition the stock price. But at its current standing, I would imagine it would be still cheap. So yeah, I mean, if the auto industry picks up again in the future, this will be a big company, a big player, and if they're partnered with Google, they might be one of the best rivals to Tesla in the future. So we'll have to see. Anyways, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you in the next video.